Okay, now I hit leave meeting, right?
That's the one. It's
Yeah,
a tough choice. Two
All
buttons.
yeah.
right.
Hello.
Hello. You did
Hello.
it.
Hello.
By virtue of your voice, you have made the
Yeah.
correct choice.
Hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to Always Strikes Last.
Where
That is
we,
the podcast you have found yourself on.
yeah, where
Yes.
we talk, strike last or lately, and generally restrict ourselves to discussions around a little game called Age of Sigmar.
There we go. It's one of several
Indeed.
games.
Yeah,
Uh, it's just one of several games. Full stop.
yeah, a little cheap, hotly contesting the primary spot for fantasy games made by Games Workshop these days. Thank you, the old
Yeah,
world.
exactly. I was having a good time. Not to get too deep in the weeds of the old world, but putting together dwarfs with great weapons, knowing that they will strike last.
Yeah, you're literally the most on point army. I
Yeah,
mean, you should come over sometime, Miles. We can break him out of my basement. We can play with
there we go.
him.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting here with my wood elves going, man, I am fighting my own brand here. What is
Exactly.
this?
Very
I'm
off-brand
trying to
for
get the
us.
stuff to read. Like I ordered the books, and like I guess they had a snowstorm in Tennessee, and all the warehouse stuff got messed up. So I only got
Snowstorm.
one of them. I get the fantasy book, and I don't have the core rule book, and I don't have the Ravening Horde. So I can't even figure out half what I can do yet.
Yeah, I'm
The
still
core
waiting
rulebook
on
is
all of my rolls to come.
it's
Haven't
like
got a thing waiting.
90% eighth edition with like a bunch of like quality of life things pulled in from other editions. That's what I can tell.
That was my guess from what I was seeing online. So it'll be
Yeah.
fun. It'll be fun. My poor Dark Elves, they had a download for how you could use them, and it explicitly calls out like in like the whole list is like, oh, this is for funsies, not to be used in match play events, never to be balanced again. I'm like, well, real damp note to start like the list reading. Like, I didn't want to make a list anymore. I'm like, okay, I can't even use this in like a casual old world tournament. Like, disincentivize me even dipping the toe in.
Yeah, that's
There
a
we go.
very interesting thing, right? Like, how much do they want to disincentivize people actually playing those armies by saying you cannot use this at all? No way, Jose, ever. Like,
Yeah,
it's
I know
interesting
we
that
don't want
they
to go down
do
the
that.
yeah potential rabbit hole here. I realize we should
Yeah.
go in the rabbit hole. We can sort of skirt the rabbit hole rim
There we go.
gently.
Speaking of Jack,
Yeah,
speaking of tournaments you do might want to play, like you do want to play in, right?
yeah,
There was one
yeah.
this weekend in Las Vegas.
Oh
I
yeah.
saw what you did there.
Yeah.
Like, that's a pretty good segue.
Thank
You have a
you.
talent for this.
We've
Right
only
as I
been
was
doing
about
this
to
thing
fall into
like
the
The old hole. Yeah, we call it the
yeah.
old hole now.
we've only been
The old
doing this
wormhole.
podcast for like 3 years. You
Yeah.
I think I could figure out uh like a segue once in a while.
You know, just a couple of carrots here and there. Miles has like
Yeah.
a just a little basket of carrots off to the side. We just run after them.
Now you threw the perfect pass with segues. We saw why you make the big bucks on this podcast for that.
Yeah.
But to avoid another digression, yes, a little tournament in Las Vegas attended by a
Yeah.
few
I
stalwarts.
I think it was, and I could be wrong here, the biggest Age of Sigmar tournament to ever have existed.
I believe
Yeah,
so,
I think
wasn't
that
it?
might be true.
There's
Hmm.
nearly 350 players. I mean, that's wild.
Yeah, that,
Yeah,
Very exciting.
next year is going to be crazy. It keeps growing in that vein. I do plan on
Yeah,
attending that one, so looking forward to see what it's all about.
hmm.
absolutely. Our friend Mick went this year and did very well for himself, although we're probably not going to be covering him in this particular podcast. But it was just fun. We just had a chance to catch up with him as he returned to Ireland the other day. So getting the inside scoop, and we'll hopefully
Nice.
share some of that inside scoop with you guys here.
Excited to hear all about it.
In the
But
meantime,
yes, yeah. So for one of the things that happens with tournaments when they get into this sort of size is, a typical 5 round tournament I can't remember exactly the number of players you can have, but it's some multiple of two. It's either 64 or 128, where you can have that number of people and you'll have a perfect winner. You'll have one 5-0, at the end of it. Um, or two 5-0s with some reasonable number of 5-0s, and you can tie break and you can find a winner and it feels okay. When you get to 350, instead of making everybody fight 8 rounds of tournament in order to get one 8-0 player, what they end up doing, and they've been doing this for LVO for a couple of years, is they'll take the top 8 players and then they'll have them fight a single elimination bracket, like March Madness style, on the Sunday. Um, so it's always a bet against yourself when you're buying your tickets for LVO to buy the ticket to the doubles tournament, which is also on a Sunday, because you're expecting to not get into the top 8.
It's true. I mean, you put yourself into a situation where you just can't please everyone. And often, actually, with that configuration, it's even worse because you have a team there and like your success will automatically screw up your team because they cannot
Yes,
play the
exactly.
team.
I do think they are pretty accommodating, in the case that happens, but it does always feel like a bet against yourself when I'm doing it.
It's true. Well, there's also the tickets back, right? I mean, like if you're trying to have a tiny little weekend of it, and you're like, oh, I'll have my tournament, I'll fly back Sunday night, I'll have all of Sunday to relax and enjoy the convention. That is not always true. And if you're going to play in the top 8 or
Well,
be kind of invested that way, or there's a doubles tournament, so you have to make sure you plan accordingly and buy a Monday ticket or a real late Sunday night flight.
yeah, yeah.
On the
But
alternative side, don't overinvest unless you've spent, the time actually, being a competitive player, thinking that you're going to make it.
yeah,
Just,
no, yeah.
Realistic goals are always positive goals.
That's true. Don't plan your day around how you're going to like make sure you're hydrated for the second round of 8 games or for the round of 3 games.
Just gotta
Yeah.
offer that opinion there as well.
This is coming from a group of people who've never made the top 8 bracket at LVO. So, really, I'm
Just
not
wanted
even
to,
close. So,
yeah, just wanted to, set our mile markers there for how far we've trudged through these.
no, yeah,
That's
that's
true.
fair.
Right?
That's fair.
We've resoundingly gone to LVO collectively at different times and done okay, but yeah, that top table is more of a theoretical construct for us at
Yeah,
this
Indeed.
time.
exactly. But it's always,
Aspiration.
when you're buying that doubles ticket, it's always in the back of your mind. It's like, well, what happens if I do really, really well? It's like you're don't worry about it. Don't worry about
It's
that. You're gonna...
it's honestly so true, though. It's so true. I think you and I were having a conversation about this Miles over the summer, where I was indulging in the possibility, which was a possibility, but you reminded me like this is not like a 90% likelihood thing you have to think about right now.
Yeah, exactly. Right. This is
Uh,
you got struck by lightning, and let's figure out how we go move forward. Like,
exactly. Not impossible, but like not something that you should be fretting over. And I think
yeah,
that's probably good advice for anyone going to LVO or any kind of 350 tournament, because with that numbers, you can do everything right. A couple dice, and you're still not going to be there. You're going to be 10th. You still
yeah.
have a fine
No,
time.
exactly right.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, so we thought for today, what we would do is we would take a look at the lists that made it into the top 8 bracket and sort of go through them and give you guys a sense of what is this list doing, what's making it tick, um, to hopefully get some insight there. Um, yeah. Does that seem? I mean, I'm asking the audience as if they have a chance to respond, but that's,
It's more of a rhetorical question, audience.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
show us your approval by continuing to listen, hitting like, subscribing, and please join our Discord
Yeah.
through the Patreon.
Tiny golf claps over the horizon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Continue
And
forward.
I do feel, it's probably worth mentioning that like a lot of these lists, while there may be some really interesting insight and stuff like that, like a lot of these players are just insanely good players and they would do well playing anything that they have just a lot of practice on. Like it's not that the list is like the thing that put them over the edge. It's probably a very good list that they were able to outplay, you know?
Yep. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it really is kind of apparent when we were looking at these just before we started up. We're like, wow, okay,
Sure
cool.
enough.
Yeah,
Yeah, so let's
all
let's
right
kick it
then.
in. Specifically this first one. So in eighth place for the tournament, Jacob Brandon had Cruel Boys. And looking through this, so it's Cruel Boys, Grin and Blade, so that's can't they're out of line of sight. They're not visible for more than 12 inches away.
Mhm.
Um, and it's the grand strategy is Crump 'em all, which is an interesting grand strat for this, which is you have Gobsprack and the enemy has three or fewer units left on the board.
Now, right there, before we go any farther, like in terms of grand strategy selection, like I don't know Jacob's thinking on this. I'm not a Cool Boys player by any means at this point in time. That seems like really hard to control for.
That seems very ambitious, yeah. But hey, I'm not going to tell him his business. Clearly, he's done this once or twice.
Well,
Yeah,
and on
yeah.
the other end, he did essentially go into kill them all and let Mork sort them out, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
three
exactly.
units of six man-skewer bolt boys is a lot of man-skewer bolt boys.
Yes, absolutely.
Sort of a
Uh,
fun you can shoot and they can't shoot you kind of configuration, right? With the outside
yeah,
of 12 restriction. So wait, did we
Mhm.
read the full list? Let's read the full list
Oh,
because
sure.
we are
yeah.
an
So
audio channel and our ears don't have eye holes to see the screen.
also, Jack's PCP subscription has lapsed, so we got literally have to read these out.
I
Yeah.
was outed. It happened.
It happened. No, it happens to all of us. So we got Gobsprack. We've got three Swamp Kala shamans with Potgrot, with a smorgasbord of spells, including Merciless Blizzard. We got a Snatch a Boss on Slidraker Beast. That's the general. It's super sneaky. And it's a Weirden, so it's got a spell ignore. And then he's got minimum battle line, two Gut Rippers, and 10 Hobgrot Slittas. That's pretty much the least you can possibly spend on battle line in a Cruel Boys army.
Yep.
And then 18 Manskewer Bolt Boys and Dagox Stab Lads, who I assume is just in there because that's the only 70-point unit you can take in the Cruel Boys army.
Did they
Yeah.
have anything fun? Didn't they have like
They
one
have
fun
a
rule?
they have like a 4-up.
Yeah, take away your CP, right?
Yeah, yeah, or yeah, exactly.
Is that within a range or global? I don't
It's
recall.
within the
Uh,
range and it might be within combat range. They're a pretty
Hmm.
new warband.
Okay.
it's either 12 or 3. It's one of those two. Um,
Um, so
that
it's
that could be
interesting.
interesting.
It's some interesting tech there, but it's very unreliable. So it's more of like a threat. Like it's like a cockatrice where it's like, look, you come over here, I can't control what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
a little bit of
know?
deterrence there,
It's
but
like,
not reliable in the actual situation you need it to happen.
yeah,
Exactly.
there's a chance this could suck for you, but I don't know.
Yeah. All the
Yeah.
4-ups, right? Like, oh, curse or cockatrices or this or, nice to haves, but can't build your life around it.
Yeah.
Um, Other than that, it's you have one Swamp Kala Shaman per Bolt Boys to buff them up with the fives and sixes do mortal wounds. You got the
Mhm.
Snatch Boss on Sledgeраker Beast to do this, have the sixes do an extra mortal wound. Um, and that's about it. And then you have Gobsprack to be there and sort of control um, to sort of be the anti-wizard, right? Because
Mhm.
Gobsprack is, if you haven't played it against him recently, if he dispels you, you take D3 mortal wounds. If he dispels you on a modifiable 10 plus, you take D6 mortal wounds.
Yeah, which gets pretty gross after the
Yeah.
third or fourth time.
So a really
Um,
neat thing, you just keep them ranged enemy wizards, though, of course, that's a trick.
yeah. And then I think one interesting thing to call out on this list is that he didn't take, well, he has a bunch of Andorian acolytes. He didn't take the acolytes battalion. This is a double battle regiment. Um, so clearly thought that the two drops was going to be more important than having the extra primal dice.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
interesting.
when they kind of want the initiative, right? They want to be able to control it at the very least, especially with
Yeah,
the range.
probably make you go first, do nothing, and then start picking you off. I think that's probably right.
Yeah.
I think that's probably it. I mean, with the defensive buff of like not letting them do much, if they're outside of 12 inches in terms of counter shooting, they can safely give away the first turn. And then if you're too close to Gobsprak, it's going to punish you with the dispel.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems sort of like resilient and alpha in some ways.
Yeah, I
Maybe a little
wonder.
chaff units absorb too.
I would have loved to see how this actually played out on the table for objectives.
Hmm.
Whether or not he like clumped up as a big blob and then just threw the extra units out to like grab objectives as needed, or just seems
I
like
mean,
a very
I'm imagining the Gut Rippers and the Hobgrots are doing a screen when you need a screen, and otherwise are just those are your forward units to grab objectives and stuff. And
yeah.
um, because you want as many of those bolt boys wholly within 12 of the Sludge Raker Beast as often as possible.
Yeah, then maybe
So
the
yeah,
stab lads as well for objectives. 70 points
Kind
for
of
an
a super
objective
castle,
forever.
really. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, you're definitely. I mean, this is definitely a castle, I think. And it's a Gruul Boys list. I don't know what to
Yeah.
tell you.
Well, it's cool that it did this well, and
Oh
hats
yeah,
off, to Jacob for sure. I would have loved to watch one of those games to see how he pilots this.
yeah.
He 5-0'd, on
No,
the first
absolutely.
run.
And as we are seeing more shooting come into the meta with cities and obviously KO still doing very well, this like strong anti-shooting. This is also very good anti-Lumineth when Lumineth was being such a pain in the ass
Yeah.
earlier,
Yeah.
last year.
Oh yeah.
Uh, but all right, moving on. Enough Cruel Boys. In seventh place was Bill Hennessy with Ogre Mostron.
Excellent. Love to see
Very
it.
exciting. And this is 6 monster trucks. So we got Boulderhead, Slaughter of Sorcery, so kill all the enemy wizards. Um, Huskard on Thunder Tusk for the general. Voice of the Avalanche, Rhymefrost Hide with a prayer, Pulverizing Hailstorm, and the Nullstone icon. So no wizards. Another Huskard on Stonehorn with the seat of
Alvagar.
Alvagar. There we go. Thank you. And the Rockmane Elder with a heal. And then 3 Stonehorn Beast Riders and 1 Thunder Tusk Beast Rider, all with Blood Vultures. So very straightforward little monster truck army. What does it do? It runs at you and hits you with stone horns.
You love to see it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it's an interesting list when it runs right. It's fun to see at the table. It's scary. I mean, what to
It
say
is
about it?
scary.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
this
the amount of blood vultures as well, right? So
yeah.
like that's you can kill a little wizard on foot each turn with that if you want.
Almost certainly, yeah. I've run into that before. It reminded me from the list miles because, as noted, my BCP subscription has lapsed. Is it 6 or
Sure.
5 blood vultures he has?
He's got 6. He's got 1 on every single unit.
So
Yeah.
there you go. Mathematically, if you do not have your little wizard or important key buff piece outside of the reasonable threat range or behind cover, so it can't be seen, it's statistically likely just dies with 5 wounds, right? Because you do 5 mortal wounds done with a 2 up with 6 blood vultures at 30-inch range, I think. I played against a very similar list at Nova, which was kind of relying on that to do some nasty things, and I managed to save my poor Sorcerer Lord by putting them inside like a woods or a building or something. But I can see a lot of people getting caught out by that trick.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and there's no range to it. It's just battlefield invisible. So
Yep.
it's very strong.
Oh, I was misremembering. I thought it was 30 inches. Jeez, that's even better.
I think
no.
it's board wide, and I don't even think you have to have like it doesn't count as a shooting attack, so you don't have to have visibility if I remember correctly. I could
It
be
does.
wrong on that.
It explicitly calls out visible, but other than that, yeah, you just do it.
Yeah,
that's
that's
nasty.
pretty good.
It's D6 mortal. It's 2 up mortal wound to
Yep.
something that's visible.
Mhm.
So yes, that's 5 mortal wounds on average to 1 thing on the board, whenever you want.
Yep.
Um,
And then
the
truck
trick
your
with
way
this
through
kind
the
of
rest.
list is it's an ultimate flexibility list, right? It can alpha strike if it needs to. It can play cagey and dash around if it needs to. It's got speed. It hits hard when it wants to. It can sit on objectives very well, right? These are all
Yeah.
ogre monsters, right?
So
So
they count
they're
as 10 models, right, on each of
exactly.
those
So you
objectives.
have surprisingly good sit on objective power. Um, I think the one thing is that, obviously all of your wounds are very precious, you know.
Well, and then the I think we may start seeing a trend here. This is another 2-drop, isn't it?
It's a one drop.
Huskered on Thunder Tusk.
Oh yeah, no, it is a two
Yeah,
drop.
it's
Good
another
call.
two
Good
drop.
call.
So that's the
Interesting.
second
Okay.
2-drop we have. Let's see if
Yeah.
that continues, because that seems like that may be the trend for holding
I do
higher.
think that we've been looking at lists and because of the prominence of the Andorian Acolytes battalion, that forces an otherwise one drop into a three drop situation, right?
Mhm.
And so two drop is now all of a sudden a very viable number of drops to continue to hold, whereas in other GHBs it was one drop or nothing,
That's
maybe.
true.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Interesting to note, just before we get too much farther, that of the two lists we've spoken so far, both of them had their run ended by the final boss, which was in fact a Jeremy. I think of
Hey,
the
Jeremy.
eliminated a Jeremy. Yeah, each of them was felled by a different Jeremy. It looks like Jacob played Jeremy L, and Bill played Jeremy V, which will of course be in our list later, but
Yeah.
it was the end of
Well,
their
we
run.
should. Oh my God. I did seem like having the name Jeremy did help you out in this last LVO. So
Apparently
statistically speaking,
so.
Yeah,
more Jeremys than
statistically.
not.
But as a total aside, that should be a silly list we create for the channel. Like, what names statistically should you use at tournaments to win more?
That would be that that would be a specifically only always strikes last list. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Big double asterisks. Do not use this and complain about it later. It is a
Yeah,
joke.
exactly.
So
Um, okay, moving on. We got, and I'm gonna butcher this, and I apologize. Mrigank. Anybody want to
Regang
help me
Ja?
out?
Yeah, I
No
think
one wants to
Regang
give a.
Ja. Okay.
Yeah. But with Stormcast Eternals, very
yep.
exciting to see Stormcast Eternals do this well. I think, it's always tough with Stormcast Eternals because they typically are the first book of the edition. It's the same problem that Space Marines have, where they come out as the first book of the edition. They're quite good for the first 6 months or so, and then the power curve sort of, as other books come out and the design space matures of the edition, um, the tricks don't quite come together, and then so it's very exciting to see um, these guys. And this is actually a pretty interesting build where we've got it's Hammers of Sigmar, Signs of the Storm. They're doing spellcasting savant, so their knight in Cantor needs to survive to the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And they are calling for aid. That's the holy command. So we've got the General Knight of Cantor, who's the shaman of the Chilled Land, so he knows all of the Merciless Blizzard and Rupture and all the GHB um, spells. Knight Vexilor with Meteoric Standard. There's actually three of them. Knight Vexilor with Meteoric Standard. One of them has an Arcane Tome, and then there's a Knight Relictor for translocation. So you've got three of those little 6-inch bubble mortal wound blasts that you can give
Mm-hmm.
off, which again, much like the Blood Vultures in the last list, are great for, oh, you've got a couple little wizards. Be a
Yep.
shame if something were to happen to them. And because it's a pick a point effect, right? You don't really need, I don't know if you need visibility, but I don't think you do. And you certainly ignores Lookout, sir.
Yeah, and you can also take a chunk out of other things too. So
Exactly.
um, Yeah, it's
Super
literally
flexible.
it'd be bad if something happened to you. Oh, look at this weird banner that I have. Oh, you have one? I have one
Yeah.
too. Oh, interesting. You also have one? Yeah, okay. So yeah, I could see it like nuking the center of, the center of whatever strategy somebody has walking into the game with just right away.
Yeah.
And then the Vanguard
The rest of the list, yeah, we
Raptors
got
helping out. Yeah.
Liberators. I think this is a double unit of Tempesters, a
Hmm.
single unit of Fulminators, so two Fulminators. Vanguard Hunters, I think that's just five of them. Evocators on Draco Lions, I assume that's two of them. Is that a
Might be.
Matt might be able to help me out
It's
there.
just two grand staves. Um, and
So is that a double
so
unit
that's
or is
just
that a
that's the 2 inch reach. That's only one unit. 240
okay?
is just the cost for one.
Nice. And those guys are wild because they do a bunch of mortal wounds on the pile in or something like that. Or no,
They do it
play
after
fire.
they attack.
Yeah.
Um, so they're actually great for kind of forcing some target priority decisions on pile-ins and fights.
Yeah.
I think probably they're in this list for a guaranteed reroll on their charge, most likely.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
And then the
And
Everblaze
then
Comet is just the icing on top
I was
there.
piling in on the Night Vexilor stuff, right? It's makes sense.
Hmm.
like hit you with a space rock.
Yeah. And I cut you off there, Miles, but there was also a unit of Vanguard Raptors with long strikes.
Yes. So and that's just a single unit, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
So
so yeah, this is really just this almost reminds me of a rerolling ones Jack list. Uh,
it does feel like that, actually. Yeah, I was gonna say we played some test games against a list like this first before in prep for Six Nations, and yeah, it's kind of cool. It's a little bit of a mixed arms situation. You've got
mhm.
a bunch of wizards, you've got some priests, you've got the liberators and the vanguard hunters are sort of holding down, your close objectives. You've got three fast units, the Tempesters, the Fulminators, and the Dracolines. And then you've got some very strong, probably teleporting long strike crossbows to sort of, try to what's that called? Like just sort of surgically pick apart
Hmm.
your enemy while you are just trying to, hold objectives there. So
Well, and you got a
um
shrug as well because they're hammers, so they're a little bit
Yeah.
more
right. So they're getting
survivable.
the six up shrug near objectives.
Hmm. Yeah, this is a fun little list. I could never pilot these very well because it's blow one thing up. Okay, good. And I'm like, oh, I don't like blowing things up. I like moving.
Well,
Um,
it's
This one's also high mental capacity, right? Because there's a lot of different war scrolls with a lot of different abilities on them, and making sure I think the key to success in this kind of list is making sure you're getting everything out of each unit, you know?
yeah, I think that
yeah.
makes sense. They'll have to work together and they'll kind of have their role. But it almost feels like a multiple surgical strikes to this, right? I mean, you have surgical shooting, you have surgical like once a game, mortal wounds and precision points. Feels like a lot of fun, but it feels like it's pretty easy to make the wrong micro decision and have it kind of cascade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, not a 2 drop. So there's
No, this is
that.
a lots of drop.
That breaks the trend. But
Yeah.
I guess they can kind of mitigate that by putting a lot of they could put all the bandards, the standard bearers in the sky, which that
And
would
then drop them
save them.
down, turn one and
Yep.
blow them up. Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, all right, like it this is a you're going to want to go first against this to then, be able to hedge your bets. Because if you go second, they're going to drop down and then punish you right in your deployment zone.
Oh yeah. little
Yeah.
6-inch ranges of automatic mortal wounds and some clustered stuff if you're not careful. Not good.
Yeah.
And
Uh, I,
alternatively, they can force you, they could force somebody into like trying to break their plan of taking the double on the second in general, right? Like maybe that's
Absolutely.
the decision that they're trying to make. Not the you need to go first, but if you go second, there's a very good chance that you aren't going to make all your charges, etc. Right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, looks like, of course, after the initial 5-0 and the second day of gaming, Brigang's final boss was Fabian, who was playing Blades of Corn.
Nice.
That's where the
Um,
story ended.
and then moving on, we've got Thomas Juan playing in a move surprising absolutely no one. Vikros Soulblight Gravelords.
I guess
Yeah.
all
He's
wolves, no
got
zombies.
he's got Empire of Corpses, which I think is summoning units, if I remember right. You have to summon a bunch of units or get a
I'll
bunch of
look it
units.
up. I'll look it up while we're talking just to make sure we don't misquote it.
Sounds good. That's and then he's got God, this list. This list doesn't kill anything at all. It's amazing. I mean,
I mean,
I'm
it
sure it
kills
can kill
whatever
some.
walks into it, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's definitely like a set it on the board, shake hands, good luck, and that's
Yeah.
the only conversation you need to have throughout the game because
Oh
like
yeah.
you don't want to talk to that person afterwards. And like no offense to the player at all, but like this list is like, yeah, I'm gonna troll you without trolling you,
You
So
know,
troll you without trogging you.
not to be the rumor mill on that, but I think that, that it is sort of non-attractive potentially in that way. To confirm, Empire of Corpses is just replace 3 or more friendly summon units or destroy them to battle. So if things die and you bring them back, you get the grand strat.
nice.
And I think I'd heard someone tell me that at some point Tom might have even put on his blocks of zombies when they were even cheaper, like these don't fight or something like that. I didn't even bother rolling the text for them or something like that.
Interesting.
I could be
Interesting.
misquoting though.
Yeah, you have to pile in and fight per the rules, so you can't not fight. So you could like make sure that you're not piling in, but there's no way to
Yeah, yeah.
not roll the dice. So if somebody ever pulls that on you, tell them they're wrong, and they
Oh,
need to go look at
I'm
the
sure he
rules.
rolled the dice if this was
Uh,
even like remotely grounded. I think it was just some funny
so
thing where he basically
we're not
like discounted
accusing him
their
of cheating,
combat.
but that is in
Oh
fact
no
the
no no
rule.
no! I'm just saying in the grand scheme of things, if anybody says no, I'm not going to fight with this, I'm going to pass with them.
Yeah, there we
They'll
have
still
it.
have to fight at some point.
Pacifism has no place in Age of Sigmar.
That's
Nice.
right. But
So
that's
he's got Torgilius, which is a buff to the zombies,
mhm.
right? He's got the Vampire Lord, which is a buff to the zombies, which is +1 attack, I think, within range of the
Yeah,
Vampire.
he can do Vampire Lock can do +1 attack thing. Tergilius can project a 5-up ward,
Yep.
which is helpful.
Vampire Lord's got Hoarfrost, and then he's got Gorslav. Gorslav's got the Spore
Bring him
Tracker,
back.
which lets you move the zombies in the hero phase,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's because they're very slow. So that little extra bit of movement is super useful.
Yeah, it's super helpful to kind of get them where they need to go. And he has
And
like kind
then
of like a free revive. Look
I
whatever
was gonna say, yeah, he's got a
Yep.
free roll on the revive. So he also, that's that combo of trying to get that unit back. And then he's got, I mean, Jesus, 80, 120, 160 zombies and 10
Yep,
dire wolves,
All the zombies.
sounds right.
and 2 corpse carts.
Yeah, so I
And
guess
of course,
you
I was gonna
just
say one with an unholy lodestone and corpse slash, and the other with a corpse slash and unholy lodestone.
hey, you got to switch them up.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I guess like the idea of this is what put the smaller units of zombies and the dire wolves up front, send them up to die, and then bring
And
them
then
back.
you've got you've got there's pick 3 units on the table and you've got it. You've got them. There's nothing anyone can do about that. Not
Yep,
nothing, but
and
like
then
it's
yep.
I think you get a free unit of dire wolves as well for late game replenishing the ranks. Um, in addition
yeah,
to the summoning back with Viracos. So yeah, oh man, this would be a slog to get through.
yeah, no, and this is the kind of list I know Jack, you had talked about your 200 zombies. I think this would destroy my back.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have that list pretty much built, painted, ready to go of my old school lich. I just, well, not painted, built. And I never wanted to do that exact thing at a certain point
I
for multiple reasons.
I rebased all of them, and I have this list as well. In addition to a skeleton list with this, after
Mhm.
rebasing it, I never no. Just the act of rebasing all of them was enough for
That
me.
was it.
Yeah,
I was
I had
like,
a
cool,
cold
I did
sweat
it.
nightmare
Now sit
thinking
in a
about
corner,
But yeah,
zombies.
Tom Guan and the Lumbar Destroyer uh, in fifth place.
it.
Yeah,
Did good. It did
I
good.
mean, I love though that like these are not insanely tricksy things. This is not about like super amazing combos. These are good, like slog it out, fight it, and
Yeah. No,
actually good pilots win.
Yeah,
I absolutely think that the secret to this list is really, really excellent pile-in moves.
Yeah,
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 absolutely. Because if you do it right, and you do the revives right, and you put the right things up front, you'll always get your grand strat. You'll always be able to score your tactics. You'll always have advantage in the primaries. They just can't kill you quick enough. Like
Yeah.
bubbles
and
and
then
screens to
Horfrost.
absorb attacks. Yeah.
Yeah. And then yeah, if you need to really like soup something up and send it in, you can Hoarfrost the big unit of zombies and
Yeah,
give them the Vampire Lord buffs and the Corp Curse buffs and just
Yeah.
send
And
it
then you might be
forwards.
able to swing their arms more effectively. And yeah, but I mean, even just dying right with a good 5-up will do it half the
Yeah,
hmm
time.
that's true.
No, that's cool. Well, congratulations on that finish with it for Tom. Really cool. It looks like his final boss was Gavin, who I know is a teammate of his, and he knows his way
Yeah,
around the Warhammer table as well.
no,
So
exactly. So now we're moving into the top four. So these are people who won the first round of the of the elimination bracket. And our first one is Jeremy Vestier, who
fellow we know.
yeah, who was playing Caradron Overlords
Good
in
on Jeremy.
in a move surprising no one. Jeremy loves his dwarf armies, and I love him for that. He's just got impeccable taste. You know, that's really the thing.
I
he's
mean,
got the good tast.
ironically, he never
Um,
comes up short in your estimations on that, Miles.
no, exactly.
But
This is actually a really good KO list, though. I was looking at this before the event began. I was sent it to um, this guy Arno who's playing around here,
Mhm.
and this is just a really fantastic list. So it's first off, it's Barrack Mornar, which is not a barrack that you tend to take because it doesn't give you any conditional battle line, right? Which is a thing that most of the other barracks have to offer.
Mhm.
What it does give you is anytime you use a CP within 12 inches of a carriage run overlord model, on a 5-up, that CP is wasted.
I think that's honestly amazing. Like if you weren't relying on conditional battle line, that's such a good ability. Just like
Yeah.
automatic fuck with someone's plan. Oh wait, I guess it's okay to say that on the podcast, but mess with someone's plan.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean it's why
Yeah,
people
we
like the
swear on this
Friggle
podcast.
command
That's
core.
fine. We're
yeah,
Yep.
we're radio MA or
Yeah,
however podcasts are rated.
our our tongues are free to wag in whatever direction they want. That's good.
Yeah.
we don't worry about the is this safe for kids check on the YouTubes.
Exactly. Oh, well, good on that. But yeah, I think that's a great ability. So it just has to be within 12 inches of any unit
I
with
think
any
it's yeah,
unit.
12 inches. If you use a if I think it's the thing that uses the command ability. So if you have a hero who's giving it forward,
Mhm.
it won't be it. But if the order gets issued within 12 inches of a Barrack Mornar unit, on a 5-up, it's used. The command counts as being used, but it's never received.
Yep. So
That's
you lose the
just
CP and
amazing.
you lose the ability to use that command ability or use a command ability on that unit because it wasn't received, it failed, but the unit tried
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
it, right? So you can't do another one, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
I just feel like abilities like this are always amazing, and I always want to find a way to get them to work because the number of times someone is using the command ability and they don't need it is virtually zero if they're higher level play. So like it makes a difference every time it goes off, whether it's an all defense, an all attack, something super crucial like they can't even charge without it going off,
Yeah, yeah.
like a Slaneshi charge or something like that. I mean, it's nasty. I mean, when it's a tighter range, it's more manageable, but just any unit within 12 inches, just call it
Yeah,
out. This is great. Outside of anything else, this is so good.
yeah.
I would love
Yeah, and
Jeremy to
then
say how many times it came up in a critical moment.
that would be very interesting. Yeah. His Karajan code picks are also very interesting. He's got uh honor is everything, which is the 4-up rally. That one that one's very popular. For the amendment, he's got trust to your guns, which is reroll a hit of 1 for 1 attack made by a friendly Karajan Overlords unit every shooting phase. So that's kind of interesting. Well, it's in your shooting phase. And then this
Mhm.
one's kind of interesting. His footnote is there's no trading with some people, which is once per battle at the end of the enemy shooting phase, pick a Skyfarer's unit, so a non-boat unit that was targeted by a shooting attack, and they get to immediately shoot.
That's good. It's always
It's
good.
it's situational, but it's very interesting, and so and then the other thing that's really cool about this list, so he's got sort of the normal trifecta of leaders, admiral,
Mhm.
navigator, chemist. He's going with the handstone, the hand carved nullstone icon. So he's got 2 dispels and an auto dispel. Um, so that's kind of interesting. And then he's got double thunderers, so 2 units of 10 thunderers and a gun hauler. Um, and he's used the gun hauler. He's used the his what's it called his Endrin work to give the gun hauler transport capacity, and he's got 600 riggers in there, and the 2 thunderers are in frigates. So typically when you're seeing the KO list, you see thunderers go in ironclads to have the big gunboat, and you see Endrin riggers and sky wardens in frigates, right? To
Mhm.
get that sort of the assault landing um, bonuses there. And he's kind of flipped the script on that, where he's got 2 very, sort of medium gunboats flying around, and then he has the gun hauler with the Endrin riggers in it to do that, have that combat threat
Mhm.
where he needs it. And it's pretty interesting because one of the issues with these KO lists is that, if you brought an ironclad and a frigate, you really only have 2 units. I mean, you have more units than that, but like functionally, in terms of positioning on the board, you only really have 2 units,
Hmm.
so you can be 2 places. And so he's spreading himself out a little bit so that he can have more board control. And I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it's interesting to know too, just between this and the last list, obviously very different armies, very different goals. There's a lot of redundancy and like duplication to make sure that the plan works, right? Like a lot of certain war scrolls. Here he has
Yeah.
the same sort of setup, right? With the 2 thunders, the 2 frigates, like you don't win the game by getting lucky and spiking one of the pinatas.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And another thing to note, another 2-drop.
Mhm.
Yep. Another 2
2 is the new
drop.
one. 2 is the new one.
KO. I mean, KO have always loved being, controlling that uh the turn order, and it is really hard to fit a KO list into a single drop, just in general. Like that's one of those places where the conditional battle line would be huge.
Mhm.
So Jeremy's clearly made a decision that being in 2 drop is okay for him, or that Barrack Mornar, the bonus is more important.
Yeah, that's an interesting list.
Absolutely. Well,
Um,
let's see. Jeremy's final battle was against Gavin. Gavin was his final
there we
boss.
go. Couldn't handle the steam tanks. That'll be exciting
Yeah.
when we get to the steam tanks. Um, all right, next up in 3rd place is Fabian Barbus. Hopefully I got that right. With Blades of Corn. And this is, oh, you know what? I should have looked at this before we started recording, but this is actually a pretty fun list. So he's got Bloodthirster. So it's Reapers of Vengeance, which is the one. It's the one for the big Bloodthirsters. So he's got a Bloodthirster that's going to always strikes first and give always
Mhm.
strikes first to a second Bloodthirster.
Yep.
Uh,
+1 to hit against characters, right?
Yeah.
yes, I think that's right.
pretty
So he's got,
critically with boom thirsters and stuff like that.
yeah, or am I thinking of, did I get that wrong? Because he's got the Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury, which is not the Boom Thirster, right? That's the
That's right. It's a different one. Let me just
Unfettered Fury
pull
is
this
the
up.
one I'm thinking of. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's the one with the whip. And this one, the start of the charge phase, um, oh no, maybe I'm wrong. Okay. No, no. This one, oh, gives 3d6 charges.
Yep,
That's
yep. He
his,
can do that.
that's his
That's
thing.
what it was.
Okay, there's too many. I'm saying it now. There's too many different bloodthirsters right now.
And they all look the same.
It's true. It's all over the map. All over the map.
Yeah.
Uh,
So this is more of a control tactic bloodthirster, right? Because he's given you the 3d6 charges. He's also he has an 8-inch aura of -1 to hit for enemy units. And he does some potential mortal wounds at the end of the combat phase. So he's kind of a buff piece.
mhm.
Um, he's got Bloodmaster Herald of Corn, two of those guys, and those are, I believe, those are the I wanted to say those. I should have looked this up before we started the podcast.
What is this?
Um,
It's a
yeah,
Bloodmaster Herald of Corn. I'll
yeah,
check that
okay. This
here.
is the guy I'm thinking of. Okay, it's like a character bloodletter.
Yeah, a little 110 point guy, looks almost indistinguishable from them.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, his
Just
thing is in
prayers.
the combat phase, if you pick him to fight for the first time, you can then have a bloodletter unit within 16 kind of go immediately after or before or simultaneously. So
yeah.
that's a thing.
And
Yeah, and
they
then
both
you
have double prayers, so he took the Warlord battalion for the extra prayers.
hmm
mhm.
So he's very flexible
Um,
then. He's got a few things going on. He's got Scar Bloodwrath
yeah.
in there too.
Scar Bloodwrath is so good. It's unreasonable how good that guy is, and he's he's not like especially powerful. Like he gets more attacks based on the number of models within range of him. So if you throw him into a big unit of, let's say, zombies or something like that, he's gonna do great. But then once he's dead, end, maybe end of every movement phase, you roll 2 dice, and on an 8+, he just comes back and teleports right onto the field.
Yeah, Corn just
Because
poops him right back on the field.
Exactly. And that you're like, okay, well that's interesting. He comes back, but he wasn't that good. But he comes back anywhere on the board. He just teleports in. So, oh no, you left an objective unguarded? Scar Blood Wrath.
yep,
Like
yep. It's
F mine
honestly a
now.
thing. It's a
You
thing.
know? And he's just dangerous enough that you really don't want him running around in the backfield doing whatever you want. Or doing
Well,
whatever he
it's true. I mean, he has like two kind of secondary abilities, right? Like he makes murder rolls better, because he I think adds more to them if Wrathmongers are nearby him and they're dying.
Sure.
But he also has that, like as you were referring to, Miles, multiplicative number of attacks based upon some big cheap horde he's fighting. If he's within 3 inches of 20 models, he has 20 attacks, and
Yeah.
he's I think a 2 of 3 up. So he'll do weird work. It's a little silly missile.
Exactly. Let's see. He's also got Scarbrand. Scarbrand. I don't think we have to talk about Scarbrand.
No,
Scarbrand.
we've seen him around.
He's a heat-seeking missile. He's great.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and then
Second Bloodmaster.
the second Bloodmaster, and then Phaedra Skullscryer. So that's kind of interesting. An ally from the what's it called?
Slaves to Darkness.
Slaves to Darkness. And she's got the Godsworn Hunt with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
this is a really interesting list. Keep going. I don't want to slow us down.
sure, sure. He's then got 20 blood letters. So in a big block, 10 blood reavers. So that's the really sort of cheap infantry, mortal infantry. Claws of Karnak. So that's is that the
It's another little war
is that the war band?
band.
That's the war band.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
believe
And they've
that's
got a scout move, if I remember right.
something like that.
They've got a
Yeah,
scout
it's a
move.
Warcry warband. And then Magor's Fiend as well.
Yep.
Yep.
Really,
That's another Warcry weapon. When Ken was using these guys, he was using the Claws and Megor's Fiends largely as sacrificial units, The thing I
Yeah.
think about Magor's Fiends is I think they come with a free dog, and the dog is its own unit, and that's 2 blood tithe points right there.
That
Yeah.
might be
Like
part of
very
the
well.
reasoning with Thedra too. I mean, bring Thedra to be able to do like the spell battle tactic, and she's a little more survivable because you just shrug with her local dudes, or else it's her own unit for blood type.
Yeah. Okay. So Magor's Fiends, when you at the beginning of the battle, when you set them up, you summon a flesh hound, a single flesh hound unit of 1. So it's like a great throwaway 2 blood tithe point unit for the points.
That makes
Um,
sense. That's amazing. That one
and
right
then he
there.
brought the Hexgorger skulls, which is great in this magic heavy meta that we're in, and the Wrath Axe. The Wrath Axe is just good.
Mm.
Yep. Breath
That's
X hurts. Oh, it's so
yeah.
painful.
Once again, a 2-drop with 2 warlords.
Hmm.
Nothing too surprising there.
No, not a 2
No,
drop.
no,
This
no.
is a million drop.
Yeah.
It's
This
no,
Oh,
is
it's
it's
two
11
warlords. I
drop.
was saying,
all
I was
drop.
thinking 2 battle regiments for a second. He doesn't care about
Yeah.
order. Never mind.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. This is a you're gonna make me go first because you can't afford for me to go second.
Yeah. Yeah. 3d6 charge means like, they're across the board. And then I imagine, Scarbrand's on one side and then everybody else is kind of
Yeah.
just going wherever they want. This is one of those
Yeah.
lists that's just like, yeah, I'm going to control the board. And if you
Well,
want to punish me, then I'm here for it. Let's go.
Yeah. No, and
Fabian.
he's got 2 different nuclear options
Mhm.
in the list, which is more than someone's gonna be able to deal with in the single turn, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and other than that, it's a control list um that's gonna try and pin you in and while he builds up blood tithe points.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty interesting into that. With like those monumental threat ranges and some things he can use that actually start the fight where he wants to. I like it. I like it. And then he had a great
Yeah.
run. Congratulations to Fabian. He only found his end on day 2 when he was playing against Jeremy, one of the Jeremys. So
One of the Jeremys.
one of the Jeremys.
Hey,
uh
Jeremy.
Jeremy Lefebvre.
Yeah, the Jeremy who has
Yeah.
not found defeat yet.
I see. Moving on, we got the 2 cities list to wrap it up. These are 2 very different cities lists, and I'm so excited to talk about this one of Gavin's,
Yeah.
which this is this
Yeah.
is the best cities list. I don't care what anybody else says.
It's honestly, this is the list that you open the book and you build and say, well, ain't it cool? I'm gonna have fun with this. And the fact that this is here
Yeah.
at this spot is very much, probably a testament to his hidden power, but also a testament to Gavin. So great job, Gavin. Before we
Oh,
even get into the
absolutely. No,
list.
this
Oh,
is
yeah.
this is take a unit that's fun and pretty strong and buff it to 11. Right? That's what this is.
Yeah. I think this is also the list that is probably going to see some Battle Scroll updates
Oh, sure.
uh,
Sure.
quite a bit, sadly. Yeah, I've heard tell Steam tanks are insane now, and it really makes a lot of sense. But if you want to go through the list, Miles,
Yeah.
you
Sure.
can exclaim.
So he's Hallowheart, and again, I'm not super up on the cities of Sigmar, so I'm not gonna claim to know what the Hallowheart is. And he's reclaiming for Sigmar again. We will hopefully get you some details about that. But he's got the Battle Mage on Celestial Hurricanum. That's that +1 to hit buff piece. That also has the sort of mortal wounds from the Storm of Shemtek.
Mhm.
He's got a Battle Mage on that. He's got a Battle Mage on foot with the Realmstone Orb, and if I'm remembering right, the Realmstone Orb gives him 6 inches of range to all of his spells, which is interesting.
Yeah, I believe
Um,
so, but
Mhm.
it can come at a cost. I can't remember what it is.
and then he took Wild Form, which is that's the move fast spell. I'm pretty sure.
Move fast.
He's got the Alchemite Warforger, who took Blizzard, but I really think the Blizzard is just like it's a defensive option because what you're doing with the Warforger is you are casting Blazing
Blazing
Weapon
weapons. Yep.
to give 6s to hit, do an additional mortal on a unit nearby. And then he's got the Steam Tank Commander, which is just a Steam Tank with the hero version of the Steam Tank. And then 4 other Steam Tanks and 2 units of Free Guild Command Corps. And The Free Guild Command Corps are super interesting. Um, I've seen a lot of this double Command Corps situation. It's a little weird because they're not named guys. Like it's not a unique unit, but it feels like maybe it ought to be. It feels a little bit like Gabapalooza in the
Yeah,
sense like each one of them has their own.
Yeah.
Every single model has its own rule and weird loadout, and so it's a little bit of a funky unit to use. The immediate secret sauce on these guys is one of them, the Spy Master, the Whisper Blade. There we
hmm
go.
oh
If
yeah.
once per turn, when an enemy unit issues a command, you can say that Whisper Blade will try and disrupt it. If you do so on a 4-up, the command is not received and the point is lost.
And this is
Yeah.
exactly what we were talking about before in terms of the power of this, like with the Barak Mornar, right? Like this is amazing
Yeah,
when you just have to get within 12 inches to once a turn just be able to have a single model floating around the board, no sight, no
Yep.
anything, no condition, just oh, I want to disrupt that. And to do it
yeah.
twice,
Yeah,
real
so he can't
powerful.
do it. He can't do it twice for the same command ability. There is a little bit more wording about that, but he can do it twice in a turn, which is fantastic, right? Because
Exactly right. Yeah.
realistically, right, you only have like 3 or 4, maybe 5 command points over the course of the whole battle round, you
Hmm.
It's
know?
true. But he also
So
has the sawbones in there too, which I don't think we should overlook, which is like basically the battle surgeon, and he can just heal D3 wounds to something within I think 12 inches of it, or combine return smaller models up to a even with one window combination D3 of
yep.
those. So it's pretty good. And I think it works in the steam tanks, doesn't it? Because they're human keyworded.
Yeah, yeah, they're human.
I
Yeah,
think
that's why
so. Yeah.
this all happens.
Hmm
So yeah,
Then
so
the
he's returning dead steam tank crew. Um,
the
and
secret sauce is that blizzard is actually really good with Aluheart because you can almost guarantee getting it off if you need. Um,
ah,
because you can roll 3 dice with that wizard. And so essentially you're rolling 3 dice regularly. You roll a 10 plus, you're going to take D3 mortals. Boohoo, you heal it up with your command corp and then just continue to do it over and over and over. If anybody gets in range of your command corps, which probably holding midfield, right?
yeah,
hmm
yeah.
And then the
Um,
tanks, you can just have them shoot at whatever you want, because orders are scary.
It's
yeah,
really funny. Like if you think about like one version of what might be sitting on the field with this. I mean, you could have the tanks sort of loosely aligned close enough to these castles, and you could have them healing if they do get damaged. But you could have almost all of them on an effective one-up save. The Warforgers using that runic crucible, so
Mm-hmm.
they're real resilient. And then, of course, with the plus when they hit, and if the Warforger goes the other way, they can even get bonus mortal wounds on volumes of attacks, like steam guns, which are
mhm.
2d6 or
No, exactly. And that 6 to hit does a mortal wound in addition is great when you have 2d6, maybe 3d6 shots
mhm.
Yep.
on the unit.
And
And I,
the the only thing that I could see being like a detractor from this list, and probably one of the contributing reasons it probably just didn't take everything all the way, especially going into the next list,
Hmm.
is that those steam tanks, they're only worth 2 points on an objective.
Yeah.
So that would be the only thing that kind of scares me with popping right into steam tanks. That's only because I am not that good of a player as these guys, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
But man, I
No,
love the idea of this list.
oh yeah,
I feel pretty confident in thinking that Gavin's skill as a player is what helped him, win those points on primaries
Oh yeah.
because this list was not giving him any help in that sense.
I think that's
Hmm.
you're probably spot on with that. I'd love to find a recording of and watch one of his games because, like in like some crazy six primary mission, this thing
Yeah.
seems like it will make an unkillable castle and maybe one objective, and you're done if you don't find the way to do it right with that high skill
Yeah,
cap. So,
Yeah.
exactly.
real props to Gavin for making the dream happen. This must look so
Absolutely.
cool.
No, this is a meme list at its best, and he's fucking destroying with it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's just got to be cool setting up too. Like the little Warhammer nerd in me, the kid is just like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
gonna put all tanks on the field. Yeah. You
This
know,
is it's
like, I love
it's
it.
a Timmy list, right? It's to use
I
that.
love that it made it up this
Oh,
far.
ultimate Timmy.
Yeah.
Its final form. It's made
Timmy
it.
push tank. Tank. Yeah.
Well, of course, it brings us to the overall winner of LVO, who had
Yep.
two advantages, to his name. One, his name is a Jeremy, so there's no doubting
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Already doing
Yeah,
well.
on the eventual list we put together, it's going to be highly indexed. So don't worry about that for Jeremy Power. And also playing cool cities and probably just doing really well and playing some amazing Warhammer. So, congrats to how to even get
Yeah.
into it to Jeremy Lefebvre. But let's talk about what
Yep.
he did. His is a
Well,
different sort of
so
list.
one thing that was fun, he actually beat Mick in round 5 of the initial 5-day tournament. That was his 5th win to get into the top 8 bracket. And Mick had lunch in order to read this list and come up with some sort of semblance of what on earth it's going to do.
Mhm.
And I think the answer he came up with was, I don't know.
That's the answer I came up with when I looked at it first too.
Well, so there's
Oh.
a couple of interesting, pieces of tech with this. And if we you want to roll through it,
Sure. So it's Mistfon or
Miss
Oh,
Taven?
Misthaven?
it's Miss
Misthaven.
Haven. I
There's
think of the
there's a little
Haven.
O
Yeah.
on top of the A, so I assume there was like a weird pronunciation I was supposed to go
These
for
are
that.
Nordic elves, I think.
Yep. So
Yes.
that's pretty much extra movement um,
Okay.
in the hero phase, meaning you can, get up a little bit closer as you need, which is super good. Um,
The
and
grand strat is banners held high, which is I think you have more units with banners than they do at the end of the game.
yes, yep.
That's
The
kind of
uh,
interesting.
the caveat, and this is really important here, is it's D6 movement, three different Misthaven units, more than 12 inches from enemy units. They can make D6. If the unit has a mount, 2d6. You can't finish
Ooh.
within 3, but you can get a free 2d6 movement for your cavaliers here, right?
Yeah, well,
Um,
don't ruin the surprise, Matt.
oh, sorry.
No, sorry. We got the Alchemite Word Forger. We talked about him earlier.
Mhm.
We got Haskell Hexbane and the Hexbane's Hunters. They're that new warband, Warcry warband with all the
Yep.
dogs.
Yeah, and they're wonderful because they have a 5+ shrug. So they've got a ward, which is nice to have something that you can throw forward. They get bonuses against chaos and death
Okay,
for hurting them. They're actually really awesome, and they've been showing up in a lot of my cities lists that I build.
nice.
Um,
They seem like they could be an interesting points value as well for what you get for them.
Yeah, they have just enough wounds where it's like, yeah, this is pretty cool. But then you get to the next unit that he put in there, which is Pontifex Sinestra,
Yeah.
and she gives shrugs within a certain area. For
Okay.
it.
And she
Um,
also has the like Tempest of all your wizards and priests take some damage.
something like that. I can pull her up real quick. I don't personally have her any lists. Again, I like to move, and she's so slow. She's so slow.
What were you
Um,
asking about Pontifex, Matt? I think I missed part of that.
She's
oh
got some sort of do a bunch of damage to, yeah, here we go. Cast out evil. Roll a dice for each wizard and priest in the enemy wizard and priest in the battlefield on a 2-up D3 mortal wounds.
yeah, and this is a prayer. Which like the great thing is like she's a she turns your army into a jack of all trades, right? So she's got a
Yeah.
4 and up ward, which is pretty good. Means you have to burn a lot or you have to strip it somehow. But she
Hmm.
can either give a 5+ ward to everything wholly within 18, which you can see where these cavaliers are going to turn in, not cavaliers, but the steel helms are just going to turn into a little block of bodies.
Yeah.
She can add 2 inches to the move, which makes them deceptively fast. Or roll a dice for each enemy wizard, 2 and up D3 mortals. Again, and that's battlefield wide. So there's another one
Yeah.
of those like kill everything. Kill all of the little baby wizards.
If you spike 2 turns of that, you could kill every wizard on the board.
Yep.
Like
Pretty much,
uh,
Yeah.
and that's a power piece, right? If someone's sitting there with a bunch, like a lot of investment in 5 or 6 wizards, just
Hmm.
rubbing your hands together.
right. Yeah. Let's see. He's got the free guild Cavalier Marshal. That's a Marshal on horse, I'm assuming.
Yep, that's that
Yep.
guy.
Man.
Cool new one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
Wonderful
the
model.
Marshal on Griffin. Now this is the fancy Marshal on Griffin, the very fancy new one.
Yeah, and
Those
this
are
one
cheaper
is
than I thought they were going to be.
yeah, everything in this army is just a little bit cheaper than it feels that it should be. I'm not grumbling at all. I think I'm
Oh
trying to
no, this is
remember. No,
this
it's
is
the old one.
what's his name?
It's the old one.
Uh
It's the old
Carl's.
one. I mean, he can take,
It's Carl. Carl
yeah, there we go.
Franz.
Carl Franz.
yeah,
That's who I was thinking of. Thank you, Matt.
Mhm.
a
Yeah,
blast of
but
the past there.
it's interesting because he can give 2 orders once per game, and then he can roar like a bunch of different guys. So
Oh, that's
essentially, what
cool.
it's doing is like opening up the ability to just not have all out defense when those Cavaliers charge.
Yeah.
Right. So I
No, and
mean, it's really cool.
the damage he puts out is like pretty good for the points cost as well.
Yep. Yeah. He's pretty good. But
Very nice.
the Cavalier Marshal on the horse actually as well gives him that strike first. And then
Ah.
it's the same thing as like the Slaves to Darkness Knights and
Oh, sure. And the
Mounted
Chaos Lord on.
Hero. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's
Mhm.
there's a lot of guaranteed charges. There's a lot of a lot of guaranteed charges with the add 3 to charge rolls from the Cavalier Marshal. A lot of strike first. So this is more of like a kind of slog through beat 'em up kind of thing, which I really like. But to keep going, Galen
Yeah, yeah. We've
Van
got
Denst.
Galen Van Denst and his daughter Duralia Van Denst.
Yep.
Yeah,
Power
which
duo.
yep, cool, awesome, love them.
What a fun. I mean, I just love the number of like little fun characters in this list,
Mhm.
like
It's honestly so true. Like little personalities, like uh,
we got 10 Free Guild steel helms, which are
yep.
the sort of the
The
main line.
base infantry you see slogging around the field for cities. Yep.
Yep.
Yep,
2 units of Cavaliers. I think those are 5-man units.
Just
those are
5 each.
5-man
Yep.
units. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Hexbane's Hunters, we talked about
Yeah.
them. I had actually gotten them confused with the Wildercorpse Hunters. The Wildercorpse Hunters is the one is the Warcry warband with the lots of dogs. Hexbane's Hunters is the Underworld's team with the dogs.
Yeah, there are
Yes.
dogs on each. That's
I think
I mean,
looking at the models between the two of them, I feel like it's understandable how I got confused.
with the size of
think
the
so.
dogs, even though it's 2 dogs, it can seem like lots of dogs, right?
That's
You
true.
got a-
It's
you got a couple
almost more dogs than
mastiffs.
people.
Yeah. So
It's a cool unit just because it's hard to target it because it's not targetable if you're outside 12 inches or their cover, I think. And they got some good shooting on it. Free move.
Exactly. And then he's got 2 command cores, and we talked about them earlier. Just the number of buffs that they put out is wild. What's a little wild about this list is it's fast. It's got a lot of different tech into it. But it also feels very thin. I don't know.
This is probably why Mick was sitting there at his lunch. He was telling you, scratch his head of like, what's its deal? Because when
Right?
you look at this, it doesn't have like the scary Fusilier castle where you say, oh, okay, it's a shooting list, it's doing this.
Yeah.
It has the ability to project power, but there's not like a true hammer unit. Like this, the
Well,
strongest fighting unit, the 2 5-mans of Cavaliers, and they kind of have to go with the Marshal. And yeah, he can get them there, he can give them strikes first. They are really
yeah.
good fighting units for 5-man cavalry units, but on paper, it doesn't look like any true hammers. It's like a bunch of little hammers. But
Well,
Matt, I think you got a big comment. You got a big comment, Matt.
That's disagreeing. Yeah.
Matt,
I don't
jump
know,
in.
man. Until you get hit by a unit of Free Guild Cavaliers, followed by the Marshal, um, it's deceptive how much they put out. Because it's worth noting that they're 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 just really good on the charge,
They add
and
the
they're
+1
and they're
damage, right?
consistent,
Yeah.
right? And the amount of attacks that they actually throw, like these are point for point better than Chaos Knights, like hands
Oh
down.
yeah.
There's no
That bar
debate
was
that.
low.
Like they're well, I mean, Chaos Knights can be okay,
They're
but
fine. They're fine. I'm not
the
saying that they're the worst.
yeah, they need threes to hit. Let's be honest. But
Yeah.
the Cavaliers are really really good. They're a really points efficient unit that we're probably going to see go up in points. To be 100% honest,
Hmm.
um, pair those up with the Cavalier Marshal and then the Marshal and Griffin. You don't have to worry about necessarily getting wiping the units that you're running into because you have the roar twice, right? So you can roar on two
Sure.
different units. So you've got one big forward moving block that actually doesn't look that damaging on paper, but it has the one thing that makes it really scary, which is it can survive combat. It can survive one combat from the return,
Sure.
and then the next combat, people don't want to be in combat with it, because it's going to strip away their ability to all out defense, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And that consistent amount of dice versus damage is nasty. So that's the forward movement. The second thing is Free Gold Command Corps are actually a solid combat unit in and of it themselves.
Yeah.
Like they are they are deceptively good in combat as well as being like a little tank. That's why I think they're going to go up. They're going to go up to at least 200 points when we see the battle scroll.
Sure.
And there's a reason we saw 2 units of them in both of these lists, right?
No,
They
exactly.
they point for point are going to do so much more than even like 200 points of steel helms, in combat, in holding objectives, in their
All of the
uses.
fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And between
and
the command cores and the pontifex and you can see how he's got the alchemite warforger and maybe the pontifex buffing up and the cavalier and the griffin buffing up the cavaliers to go in and do those surgical hits, and meanwhile he's got the command core and the pontifex putting those buffs up and doing the healing to keep what little infantry he has alive and fresh on the ground, you know, um, keeping it all together.
well,
Yeah, it makes
and then on
sense.
top of that, there's orders, right?
Sure.
So there's the countercharge order. So if he
Mhm.
looks like we have 2 battle regiments in this as well, so that should be another 2 drop, I think.
It's a 2 drop, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he has the choice depending on the army with whether or not he wants somebody to kind of hit him or not. Because if he can basically set up and kind of like use the toolkit that cities has to dictate like the flow of the battle. It's a really deceptively good list.
That's
And it
probably
it
continue, Matt.
definitely
Sorry.
maximizes the amount of points to points to efficiency that you can get out of
Yeah.
these lists. So I mean, I think it's amazing, um, and it's really hard to deal with. The fact is, we're not seeing the orders that he had here, but he
No,
has
sure.
complete board control with Misthaven on this list.
That's pretty
But I also
true.
think, this is a brain burner of an army, right? There's
Oh
so
yeah,
much to get right.
yeah.
There's so much tech going on. It takes a really skilled player to pull off this list as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if there's like to that point, Miles, you could leave yourself open and not do things the right order in the right way, and then it wouldn't be so scary. But yeah, pilot well, this I could see it being nightmarish. And to Matt's point,
Right.
on the paper here, you don't see all the orders in a way that frustrates opponents' actions or creates interesting situations like super scary counter charges from like a Cavaliers unit or something that gets close.
Yeah.
And and maybe, some of these things do punch a bit above their weight, compared to what you'd think. Like I have seen those 5 free guild cavaliers in general. And for those who haven't encountered them in the podcast yet, I mean, they run in, even without a marshal, that's what, like 12 attacks base, which are 3 up, 3 up, -2 Ren, 2 damage before the horses. And the knight is the champions coming in at 4 attacks, which are 3s and 3s, -3 Ren and 3 damage, which is kind of
And
nuts.
it's also worth noting that with that counter charge, they count as charging in that turn. So they're all going to have
Sure.
-2 rend, right? So this list will eat things alive. And it plays very well defensively, just as well as like that big block of offense there. I like it.
Being able to, I feel like being able to play around the counter charge is such an interesting skill that we're gonna have to get used to, because the prevalence of that effect, like we got Nurgle has it now,
Yep.
Soulblight have it now,
Fire
Cities of
Slayers.
Sigmar have it. I'm sure there's some I'm missing, but uh, Iron Jaws
Yep.
can have it if they
Yeah.
want to.
And don't the
You know,
Fire
Slayers
Slayers have
have
it
it.
too? Yeah.
Fire Slayers, yeah.
Legion
And
or
it,
Soulblight Gravelords have it.
yeah.
There's it's everywhere. It's the hardest thing I try and do. Like I've tried building lists for it, especially with the cities ones, because I have all those
Mhm.
all the I have about 15 of the Cavaliers and then a bunch of Cold One Knights. And
Mhm.
like the idea of just countercharging off of everybody, just putting that somewhere and just being like, okay, charge this is just amazing to me. But it's also it's a brain drain. Brain
Yeah.
drain trying to set it up. So like
So
that's
fun.
why he's
obviously
on the top table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, congrats to Jeremy for an excellent epic run. And congrats on beating the brain drain in this, on this list. Because yeah,
What,
no,
eight games?
this
Seven?
is a wrinkle brain list for sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
Like
8
100%.
games.
Well, I think 2 things when you said. One, congratulations to Jeremy, the Jeremys, to really everyone in the top 8 for an amazing
yeah,
job
of
to,
course.
get to that
Yeah.
level on a tournament like LVO and to get those placings. So golf clap to full clap all around there, but also a big apologies and condolences to their doubles partners for the team game, the next game, who were
Yeah, exactly.
bitterly disappointed because they probably thought they were going to win that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Well, I mean,
Well, it's good food for thought.
I gotta ask, what do you guys think of these lists as a whole? Like, any of them stand out to you as your favorite as we wrap this up here?
Well, I think for memes, I kind of have to give it to the Steam Tank list. It's just so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely partial to it, but I really like Jeremy's KO list. I think it's a really clever little twist on that army. And there's not like that many pieces in KO, so to have an actual twist feels ridiculous, Like there's
Yeah.
only so many ways these pieces come together,
That's totally
I
fair.
I gotta say I love rooting for the underdog there. As much as I want to go with Stormcast Eternals, yeah, I really like that Cruel Boys list. Just the fact that it made it up there, it just like
Yeah.
it's so exactly what you expect, and that just makes me think like, man, he outplayed a ton of
Matt,
people to get there.
it's true. And I got to respect that choice of yours a lot because I think it's very much in line with what you and I often cleave towards. We love the underdog army that's not winning, that has like a 15% victory ratio that no one sees, just coming out of nowhere and doing something cool. And the fact that you piloted that to that point,
Yeah,
very satisfying. Very
yeah,
satisfying.
I love seeing it. I'm sure every person that got super excited about Cruel Boys was like, okay, what is this? How do I play it? It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're dusting
No,
off
it-
their bucks.
yeah.
It's good. I gotta get my some Sledge beasts. That's what I'm lacking at the
I
moment.
like the idea of two sludge rakers just plodding up the field.
Yeah.
Love it.
I
But
myself am not going to hop in the bandwagon with his cruel boys. I'm going to stick to the very novel hipster choice of ghouls for my flavor.
There we
hey,
go.
do what you love.
Exactly.
No, I got to say that yeah, that all of these lists, like with a couple of exceptions here and there, like it feels less what would you call it? Trendy lists. These were very just solid, like not scoping into one thing. Outside of the only trend that we saw, which was mostly two drops.
You mostly two drops. Yeah, very
Yeah.
low drops.
Um,
What trend?
and like clever lists as well. Um, but yeah, it seemed like
Yeah.
a very interesting view of like where Age of Sigmar is at right now, right? The fact that
Yeah.
all of these are up in the top 8 and they're not like an insane net list. I mean, now they're net lists. They're going to be
Yeah.
net
Yeah.
lists now
Yeah.
for a little while. But like the fact that I think, most people could pull any of these lists out of the box and lose just shows like the caliber of players that make it up top, which is really cool. It's really cool to see that like lists that I could run into, in an RTT before these
Oh,
finals
exactly.
are
Yeah.
making it up top. And it's not like, okay, well, we've got, this one endless spell that we got in here. And then we have this one ally that we want for this one particular combo, like we were seeing in earlier editions or of GHBs and stuff, which is really cool. I find that refreshing, to be 100% honest.
Oh,
No,
same.
man, I think I agree with you in that, in the sense that like as we were reading through these lists, obviously I know these are great players and they're like uh I would have a hard time, beating any of them, if probably not a time at all. They'd probably destroy me. But
Yep.
but as we're reading through the list, with the exception of the last two, and it's really just up to a unfamiliarity angle, right? I've never
Mm-hmm.
played those two lists. I don't know what they do. But we're reading through these other lists, I'm like, cool. These are just, like
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. That looks right. Yep. Okay.
I feel like
You
that's a
know?
great sign of the state of the game. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
There was not a ton of secret sauce. There was a lot of excellent play that got them there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep, yep. I think that's a good way to put it, and probably a good place to end this particular episode.
there we go. Lay
Yeah.
off the secret sauce.
Set the secret sauce aside.
Yeah.
But
Um, sounds good. Well, hey, thanks everybody for listening. Next year, hopefully one of us will make it to, maybe all of us will make it to LVO. We don't
yeah,
know. It's
Yeah,
a new year. It's the future. Who the hell knows?
the future knows.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
can hedge our
Time is
unlikely
just a
bets and
concept.
just plan on whichever two of us don't make it to the top 8 can play the teams game, right?
There we go.
Yeah. There we
That'll
go.
be it.
Yep.
Obviously, just kidding there. I unlikely things we discussed before.
Oh, very good. Oh, and Jack, if you're in the area, make sure to come check out Jack's tournament this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, unfortunately for the listeners, they'll probably hear about this 2 or 3 days after the tournament has happened.
Ah, well.
Still, if you
Definitely
can, thank you.
have the foresight to go back in time and do we subscribe to the Bill and Ted theory of time travel? It's that you already did it, and so it's already
Yeah, so it's okay. Yeah.
What is that? Predestination? Is that
Yeah,
what
it's
it is?
predestination. Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna look out hard for any attendees of the tournament. It seems like they have future fashion. I'm not
There we
gonna
go.
look too hard at it.
Uh,
Oh man.
sounds good. All right. Well, yes. Thanks everybody for listening. This has been Always Strikes Last.
Until next time.
Who's gonna let Miles have the last word?